What's up, my friends out there? My name is Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel. So Capcom's Blue Bomber has been kicking ass since 1987, and he's been doing so very well, I have to say. And luckily for me, I get to tell you guys about his latest entry in the ever-going series, Mega Man 11, courtesy of Capcom. Big shoutouts to them, by the way, for sending me an early copy of the game to review for you guys. So without further delay, let's just dive right into this review. This is Mega Man 11.
Mega Man 11 is the next mainline entry of Capcom's classic Mega Man series. The Blue Bomber has gone through many changes over the years, but Mega Man 11 is probably the most interesting to date. Instead of going with traditional 8-bit sprites, Mega Man 11 takes a modern approach with 2.5D visuals, but still preserves the iconic action platforming that you remember from the NES days. The story this time centers on a long-forgotten invention called the Gear System, originally developed by Dr. Wily when he and Dr. Light were still young scientists many years ago. Dr. Light and the scientific community rejected Wily's research, fearing that it would have devastating consequences, and the device was long forgotten. That is until years later when Dr. Wily has a nightmare and remembers his old invention. Wily decides to continue his research and use the device to get revenge on Dr. Light and rule the world. So once again, Mega Man needs to take up his Mega Buster for Dr. Light and battle his way through 8 new robot masters that Wily has stolen and reprogrammed, and stop him before the gear system can be used for evil. Much of the story will be familiar territory for Mega Man fans. As a whole, the plot is pretty shallow and a few popular characters from previous games are completely absent. But for all its storytelling faults, Mega Man 11 blends together many of the best aspects of the classic games with a fresh presentation that modernizes the series.
Now, the story of Mega Man 11 is going to be very familiar to a lot of you guys if you played any of the classic Mega Man games that were either on the NES or some of the later ones that were on the PlayStation 3. We get to see a little bit more of Dr. Light and Dr. Wily's relationship and how it broke down, more specifically in their younger years, which I think is pretty interesting. However, one of the things I was kind of disappointed about is that we don't get to see any Proto Man, we don't get to see Bass, we don't get to see some of the other characters that we've come to know throughout the years within the classic Mega Man series. We still get Roll, we still get a couple other characters that appeared in Mega Man 9 and 10, and that's pretty cool, but I was hoping for kind of like a resurgence or re-ensemble of most of the cast of characters we've come to love throughout the entirety of the series. The story itself involves the double gear system, which I think is totally fine. It's a very shallow story at heart, but really the core of the Mega Man games is in its gameplay. It doesn't really build a deep and kind of intricate story. It's really kind of there tangential to the gameplay to keep things moving along. That being said, however, I don't think the story is terrible by any stretch of the imagination. There's plenty of classic series and classic iconic games that have very shallow stories that still kind of work well tangential to the gameplay. Do I think this is probably the better story in the Mega Man series? I think that's very debatable. For me, I kind of like Mega Man 2 and I like Mega Man 3's story, even though there wasn't really a story there because of all the stuff going on behind the scenes. But how it stacks up with the rest of the series, at least Mega Man 11, I still think is pretty cool. Again, it's a lot more of a modern take on this classic formula. And speaking of classic formula, we have to talk about the gameplay of Mega Man 11. So if you're a fan of the classic Mega Man games, you're really gonna like this one.
Mega Man 11's gameplay is nearly identical to the previous games of the series. You'll be jumping and shooting enemies as you progress through each screen towards the end of a level. The controls are solid and easy enough to get into. The game is challenging overall and will give newcomers to the Mega Man series a lot of trouble at first, even on the standard difficulty setting. But if you hang in there and really take everything one step at a time, then you'll quickly find that the challenge becomes incredibly fun as you get further into the game. My only issue with Mega Man 11's gameplay is how the checkpoints are divided into stages. Harder difficulty levels have fewer checkpoints in each stage, which can make things frustrating when you have to replay the same sections over and over again each time you lose a life. But as you get better and anticipate every obstacle that's ahead of you, you'll find yourself getting past areas faster and faster. The biggest addition that Mega Man 11 brings to the series is the gear system. You have 2 abilities called Speed Gear and Power Gear, which can be used at any time during gameplay. Be careful though, overusing them will make yourself overheat and prevent you from using them again for a limited time. Speed Gear slows down time around you for a brief period, allowing you to get around fast obstacles and hazards that are around you. The Power Gear gives a strength boost to your Mega Buster and your other weapons. Knowing when to use each ability is incredibly important for getting through each stage. Admittingly, you're going to be using the Speed Gear far more often than you do the Power Gear, since it can make the areas you run through a lot easier to deal with. I found myself using Speed Gear a lot more to get around hazards that would otherwise take me more time to get around. At one point, I was hardly ever using the Power Gear ability, even when facing some of the bosses throughout the game. I'm confident speedrunners will find interesting and crazy ways to use these abilities, but that's how my experience with them played out. If I hadn't known any better, I would have said that the Power Gear was completely unneeded, and I would have been fine just using the Speed Gear. You could purchase upgrades in a shop in between stages, most of which are very helpful overall. Every time I thought things got too difficult, I always found an upgrade that could help me out in some way. Some Mega Man fans might think that this makes things too easy, but I liked how it helped me out throughout some areas, and I never once felt that I was overpowered.
My only major nitpick with Mega Man 11's gameplay is that it focuses so heavily on the double gear system, both the Power Gear and the Speed Gear. For For the majority of the game, I use the speed gear in almost every single level that I played throughout Mega Man 11, with a couple instances where I use the power gear, but I feel like the speed gear is almost mandatory to use throughout every single stage and every single area. Most of the time, you're going to find yourself coming across obstacles where you're going to have to use the speed gear. There's no way to get around it without either getting hit or getting killed. And I feel like while I understand that's a big part of the gameplay specifically for this game, it still kind of takes away a little bit from the classic formula that made the Mega Man games so good, which was the platforming and the challenge and the timing required to get around certain stuff. I have to say that I still love the rock, paper, scissors type of approach when you're facing each of the Robot Master bosses at the end of every single stage. I still think it's part of the fun in a Mega Man game to discover the different weaknesses with all the weapons you could gain by defeating the Robot Masters, and this can be applied also to the mini bosses and the different Wily Butt stage bosses that you run into towards the end of the game. I also have to say that Mega Man 11 is a very challenging game, but it's also still a very fair game at the same time. There's different challenges and obstacles that you're definitely not going to get the first time around when you run into them, but as you start to play the game more and you understand what you could do with Mega Man and the different obstacles that are coming your way, things start to get a little bit more easier and a lot more manageable and a hell of a lot more fun. One thing I also do want to talk about is the presentation of Mega Man 11, which I feel like is a good blending of the old school and the new school.
Visually, Mega Man 11 is a very colorful game. Everything looks pretty good in 2.5D, even though there isn't a whole lot of detail to marvel at. A lot of the character and enemy designs are basic overall, but they translate well into this art style from their 8-bit counterparts. If you were hoping for a huge step up in terms of design, then you won't be satisfied here, and you'll have to temper your expectations. Some people may prefer the NES-style graphics of the older games, but for a more modern take on the series, this is pretty darn good to me. Mega Man himself looks a whole lot better than he did in Mega Man 7 or 8, as does the rest of the cast who appear throughout. When Mega Man gets a brand new weapon, he takes on some of the characteristics of the Robot Master he defeats, which is pretty cool overall. Something like this is pretty neat and does a lot more than just having a simple palette swap. I'll have to admit that some of the cutscenes do look somewhat similar to something like Mighty No. 9 with how stiff everybody moves overall, but that didn't bother me as much as it did in that monstrosity. There's a little bit more effort put into the animations of this game than it did in that one. I would have liked to see a few more extra bonuses that changed up some of the visuals, like some extra outfits for Mega Man or the rest of the cast, but that's a little bit more nitpicky to me.
It's a really cool blending of all the stuff that you find from the NES days and those types of visuals with a lot of the stuff of the modern day with 3D gaming and stuff, merges together to make a really cool 2.5D aesthetic that I feel like keeps something vaguely familiar but presents it in a whole new fashion, gives it a fresh coat of paint overall. The other thing too I have to mention is that the music of Mega Man 11 I think is really damn cool. It kind of falls in line with that same type of sound that you get from the classic series, but no longer is it 8-bit. It's a lot more kind of like composed in a better fashion, and it just sounds good overall. One other thing I do have to mention in this review is that there is some extra bonus content in Mega Man 11. It's really kind of meager, but if you played any of the previous Mega Man games that came out not too long ago, you'll understand that you'll get like these challenges, you'll get leaderboards, you get a gallery of all the different characters you run into throughout the entirety of the game, including enemies and some of the boss characters. That's pretty cool of itself, but I would have loved to see some extra stuff, maybe some developer interviews, maybe some extra bonus commercials, or other type of like nods that Mega Man fans are really going to get a kick out of. It doesn't seem like there's really much there after you finish the game. By completing the game, you also get a bonus difficulty level, which is a lot more harder than some of the previous difficulty levels, which is totally fine for some hardcore fans that are out there. But if I had to make a personal suggestion, if you're going to be picking up Mega Man 11, start at the casual difficulty level because it's a little bit more forgiving than the standard difficulty level. There's less checkpoints if you go to normal. There's a lot more damage you're going to be taking from enemy attacks and stuff. So I feel like casual is going to be good for the common player out there. But if you're someone that really loves Mega Man, you're really into the series, and you're pretty much ready for what challenges lie ahead, go ahead and try out the standard difficulty level. You're going to have less checkpoints, you're going to take more damage, and then if you're really bold enough, try that extra bonus difficulty level. A lot of the stuff in there, super unforgiving, will really make you kind of frustrated. So overall, can I recommend Mega Man 11 for everyone to play? I still think it's very challenging for the common person, and if you never really played a Mega Man game before, you're going to struggle a lot at the very beginning. But as you start to play the game more, and as you start to kind of go through every single stage, you start to really kind of pick up the momentum and really start to enjoy what the game has to offer. It looks great, it sounds great, it has a decent level of challenge, and it overall is still a pretty fun game to go through. I could have used a little bit more extras, and I could have used a little bit much more reward by the time I finished the game, but for what I got here, I still think it's pretty damn cool. So there you go, guys. That's my thoughts on Mega Man 11. Make sure you guys leave me a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for all my videos that I have here on the channel, and comment down below with some of your favorite Mega Man moments or your favorite Mega Man characters or some of your favorite Mega Man games if you played any of the games in the series. And don't forget, guys, I have a Patreon page. If you guys want to check it out and you guys want to get exclusive content, make sure you guys check the links down below in the description box. I want to give a big shout out to Jasmine Russell for supporting me at the Beast tier level on my Patreon page. You're getting shout outs for the entire month on every single video, every single review, every single vlog, everything that goes up here on the channel. You're getting shout outs for supporting me on my Patreon page. Remember, if you want that same type of love, or if you want to support the content I do here on YouTube, check out the links in the description box below to my Patreon page and pledge at any level, and you'll get a bunch of cool exclusives. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you now. I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.
Hey everybody, thanks a ton again for watching this video review. I really appreciate your support. Don't forget to check out some of the videos I'm going to put here on the side for you, and please, if you can, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos just like this one. I will talk to all of you again real soon. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.